Right.
Yeah,
Right.
now we're starting. Boa noite, pessoas. Bem-vindos a mais uma das nossas sessões do Caos Talk. E hoje nós preparamos uma sessão muito especial com alguns colegas nossos da França que estudam o que a gente usa, né, e o que a gente convém tomar como padrão, né, para a nossa consultoria de inovação, a teoria C-K, que é uma teoria muito interessante que tenta explicar por que o processo de inovação acontece e como a gente pode aplicar isso numa metodologia interessante para a inovação. Nós convidamos o it's Benjamin, right? And I'm speaking correctly. Benjamin and Fred. E eles vão explicar agora um pouquinho sobre a teoria, falar um pouco mais sobre eles. So, guys, would you like to start talking a little about yourselves and the work that you've been conducting with the CK theory, please?
Yep, that's what we're going to do. We'll shortly introduce ourselves, our company, the work we do, and we'll go into CK theory and KCP just in a minute. Right. Okay. So, just a few words. IDA, the name of our company is IDA for Innovative Design Activities. And we are a startup based in France, in Paris, developing methods and tools for radical innovation, and we try to spread them as possible. Shortly about the team, so I am Benjamin, and you spelled it correctly, Benjamin in Français. And just to my right, so should be the left on your screen, Fred. So both of us are co-founder of IDA, and in the team we have a few other people with different backgrounds, from more product development oriented, some more business development, and some designers as well. So shortly, what we do, we rely pretty much on research. Research in design theory has been done in the past 10 or 20 years in one of our big French universities. And we try to take this research and make it available through some methods that might be more applicable, more understandable for managers in companies. That's the first step of what we call research and development in an idea. The second step is to take the methods and try to make something that's more like something largely spreadable, or something that could be some tools. If we want to take some examples of what it could be something like what the guys of Javelin did with lean startup methods, or the guys of Salesforce with CRM things regarding more commercial things. Okay, so that's basically who we are, that's ID. We'll get into our subjects by just a short introduction on why managing innovation is a really contemporary issue. We rely on one study that we found interesting that helps both Caos, Focado, us, and many other players in this playground to exist. And that's a survey from PricewaterhouseCoopers, who explains the link between innovation in companies and growth. Basically, what the survey says is that all executives consider innovation as a major driver of growth, and that there is a kind of direct correlation between innovation and growth of companies. But even though we know that very well, we know that innovation is not new, it's been existing for years and years, but things that a bit change in two ways for us. The first one is speed. Innovation is happening at a much higher pace, and the second one is intensity. The paradigm shifts that we see in the objects or in the companies that we deal with is more and more radical. So you can see up here every day more and more radical innovation objects with huge shifts in what they used to be. And one of the common answers to innovation management has been in the past few years investing in research and development in many companies. We give you another study here that's coming from Booz Allen and Hamilton, and they show what we call R&D paradox. R&D paradox is the fact that there is strictly no correlation between any investment in R&D and any criteria of performance for a company. For example, the graph shown behind on this slide is the correlation, the best correlation they managed to find, and it's about the link between R&D investment and sales growth of a company. And you can see that there is almost no correlation. And that's the best one that they managed to find, and they did it on a pretty large panel of companies. And what we know now pretty well is that there is strictly no direct link, no direct correlation between investment in research and development and innovation. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't invest in research and development, but that it's not sufficient. That's not directly correlated. Okay, we'll just have a quick look at a few examples of innovation that we can spot in the past few years in our environment. I believe that most of them are global, so they should make sense for YouTube here in South America. And well, one on the left side of the slide, which is very well known, is the transformation of the phone industry. With the introduction of iPhone and all smartphones, we can see that there's been a real disruption in this industry, and all criteria of value for the customers have completely changed, and some major players in the previous version of what the industry was have really died. The second one in the middle is the one that we call house as a power station. And that's all the trend of what energy suppliers call smart grids. That's the introduction of local energy production in a network that has until now managed in a much more centralized way. And the one on the right side, up right, is something that we have here in Paris that's happening in all the cities around the world. It's called Veliv here, and that's basically a kind of individual public transportation. It's a bike that you can take anywhere and drop anywhere in the city. So all these examples are just here to show you to what extent objects are being completely redefined. Phones are not phones anymore, houses are not houses anymore, bikes are not bikes either. Okay, that's what we call a new era of capitalism. We believe that we are now in a kind of economy of intensive innovation, and that we are now facing huge disruptions, radical changes in the identity of objects every day. And as a result, it becomes in some way a new era of design as well. And we need to find some ways to reinvent the way we design things, the way we understand what design can mean. And that's what we call innovative design. Okay. One last thing regarding the context is that we said that many objects are changing. We saw to what extent they could be changing, and this is what we call shifts in the identity of objects. And we just wanted here to share with you what we call identity of object, and we consider that identity of object is made out of four things. the two first one are pretty well known for people coming from an engineering or technical background, which is functional description of the object. And the second one is technologies employed or used to build and design the object. The third one is more customer related. It's about who is the customer of the object we're working on and what value is he taking from this object or this service. And the fourth one is the business model. And what we consider as a stable identity of object is when all these four dimensions are pretty stable and don't move. And what we say in radical innovation is that at least one of them can change, and most of the time 2, 3, or even 4 of them are changing together. Okay, so basically it leads us to say that we are facing two different approaches of design in a company today. The first one being what we call rule-based design, where the market and the technologies are pretty well known, and where all the work of the people designing objects can be based on specifications for an object that's well known, that we will try to deliver as quickly and as efficiently in terms of both quality, cost, and delay as possible. And even though rule-based design represents something like 95 or 99% of the day-to-day company job, it has to deal as well with what we call innovative design, which is the approach of design that will allow the company to renew completely his business. And innovative design is a kind of approach of design where neither the technologies nor the market are known before the design process, and no specification as a result can be given for an innovative object when you start a design process. So what we will discuss now with C-K theory and KCP method is a set of methods or theories that will help in this kind of design approach. Okay, I'll give you everything.
Okay, so what we'll be talking about now is C-K theory. So that's the theory that was built in Mines ParisTech for now 15 years. And this is also the theory that permits to answer the question that was asked by what Benjamin just said. So what is actually C-K theory? This is a theory permitting to modelize the design, the reasoning design, and that separates a space of concept and a space of knowledge. This theory actually says that while you in design process, you actually interact between these two spaces, and I will explain to you what are those spaces. So in the C space, the space of concepts, we have all the propositions on an object which can be either which are neither true nor false. Actually, you can say that you want to build a new tire, a tire that could be better than the old tire, or you can say that you would like to build a rubberless tire, which would be for a company like Bridgestone something which is totally new. Imagine some kind of engineers in Bridgestone that would have to work on something without rubber. Rubber is actually the main competencies, the main skills. Okay, so we could say that a concept is something that would be a rubberless tire. If you Google it, you wouldn't find any kind of photos or explanation or definition of this kind of tire. So this is a concept for us, for C-K theory. A concept is this example. Now I'll explain to you what is the interaction between knowledge and concept using one example that could be a means of transport to go from Los Angeles to San Francisco in less than 30 minutes. So imagine that you would have to design this. What would be the first thing that you would do? You would gather some knowledge, some existing knowledge that you already have in mind. That would be what we call all knowledge for your design process. And that would be on train, boats, planes, and cars. And actually what we say with C-K theory is that you will use this knowledge to first propose some solutions, actually concept, to this first brief. So two kinds of concepts that you would propose would be, we could do this by using a supersonic plane or by using a train, like a bullet train. But while you, in a radical innovation process, or what we call an innovative design process, you want to search for new solution, actually innovative solution. So what we say with C-K theory is that to find new solution, you need to explore new knowledge. And actually what you can do with this new knowledge is to propose new kind of concepts that are the same kind of the rubberless tire. Here it would be, for example, a means of transport on the ground, but at the plane's speed, meaning that you would have to go, for example, at a supersonic speed, but on the ground. This has never been done before. And this is a kind of interaction that exists while you modelize a design reasoning process with C-K theory. You can show actually that using all knowledge permits only to propose all solution. But when you search for new knowledge, you're able to show how it impacts your initial brief. So actually what we want to show you is that you use knowledge to formulate and extend concepts, also to evaluate them, and then you will be forced by new concepts to actually generate new knowledge. And that would be, for example, prototyping something and showing that it is actually possible, so it is true, or not possible, false. So what can you do with C-K theory? Actually, we do two things. The first one is more focused on object, and the second one is more focused on organization. So on object, with C-K theory, we're able to allow a kind of object sequencing, showing all the attributes of an object that could be explicit or questionable. The things that we're able to do with C-K theory, that would be, for example, the mode of transportation going at a plane speed but on the ground, would be to show all the potential mutation on an object. Then the other thing that you're able to do is to impact the organization, to first design some kind of good organization that could permit to work on this object, this new object, the objects that are really new for the company, for example, the rubberless tire. And then what you're able to do is to propose some kind of new evolution for the company, for the business, for an organization. So we could show you this with an example. We could show you a kind of sequencing of an object. Let's say that we would have to work on smart washing machine. The first thing that we would have to do is to show all the classical attributes of a washing machine. Saying that a normal washing machine is owned by a family connecting to an electrical network that permits to wash dirty clothes, followed one predefined programs with a set of components, and that wear out over the time. And actually, what we could show at each level of this DNA of the object is some kind of mutation that impact your knowledge. And you could say that you could use or search for new knowledge in the sharing economy, fuel cells to have a kind of autonomy for the washing machine, work on artificial intelligence, or either a new component or auto-repairing materials and so on. So what we want to show you here is that with this theory, we can explain what is the impact on the actual attributes of an object, and then to show what kind of knowledge, pieces of knowledge, an organization would have to acquire to work on future concepts. So we just show you the theory, C-K theory, and how it can be used to modelize objects. So now we'll show you and talk about KCP, which is the method that we actually use to implement C-K in an organization. So actually, when you want to do some kind of radical innovation process in a company, you have to work on two things. The first one is to renew the identity of object. That's the kind of unfixing process that we talked about. And the other thing is to transform the organization. And you have to work on and to play on both things to be able to emerge with a radical innovation. And what we do with KCP is to take into account both sides of a radical innovation, the object and the organization. So what we say is that we're doing an organizational transition through design. So until now, what kind of tools a manager have in hand to develop new projects or to innovate? The first thing is it could do it could like implement a brainstorming and have some kind of ideas. The other thing is build a black cells, what we call a black cell, or a commando group that would be a spin-off of the company and could also come out with some new project and new ideas. But the problem is that while you innovate, you have to face two kinds of phenomena. The first one is isolation phenomena, and the second one is fixation phenomena. Actually, at the end of the day, when you work either on a brainstorming or on a commando, is that you will select some kind of ideas that fit the actual characteristics of the organization. So at the end of the process, you will have ideas that are not that much original and that are fitted to the kind of actual skills and competencies of the company. So what we need is to work on something that would be well accepted in the company, but with a high degree of breakthrough. So we have to work on a method that permits to pilot the degree of breakthrough and to ensure adhesion. This is the kind of method we use in the company that we call KCP. This method is separated in 3 phases. The first one is the phase of knowledge integration, where we gather knowledge, old and new knowledge. The second one is what we call a guided creative effort, and the third one is a phase in which we actually build and propose some new projects. Actually, the method is more like this, meaning that we have 2 kinds of levels in the management of the method. The first one, the one on the top, is the level of the C-K expert, which manage the value. This is what we call a value-driven management. And then we have a lower level, which is with the participants of the company, which is actually most of the time a large group inside the company participating to several seminars inside the company. We used this method in a lot of industries here in France, large companies, and we had 2 big successes in aeronautics industry with this method. The first one was on cockpits for the future in a company called Thales here in France, where we worked on new demonstrators for future cockpits. And the second one was in Safran. Safran is a company working on engines for aircraft. And we actually developed new hybrid engine, which was a big breakthrough in aeronautics. It was the first time in history that we proposed some kind of hybridation for helicopters. So we had 2 pretty good successes with this method, and we could talk about it in the Q&A at the end of the process, of the method, sorry. And okay, so that's it. That's it for now. And thanks for your attention, and we can discuss on whatever you want.
Well, thank you guys very much for the lecture. It was pretty inspiring. And we'd like to let people know that we enable the Q&A feature. So if the audience has any kind of question, you can just state and we'll state it here. I would like also to open up the discussion. So Diogo just joined us at the hangout. Hangout. I would like to invite as well one of our most strong partner. His owner has designed a company as well. His name is Aziz. And he'll take my place here to open the discussion with you guys. So I'll give you the word.
Hi guys, congratulations for the keynote presentation. I want to know more about if you guys have an example of application in a small company or in a small project about, how can I say, in a social objective. Sure. I don't know. Like we talk about these problems in big and huge companies, and I want to know if we can bring this methodology, this theory, to small things or simple things.
Yep. Guys, right? Okay. Well, maybe we'll switch. It's not pretty clear. We'll switch the headphones. It's gonna be more relevant. Right. Okay, back here. Okay. Basically, all the theories that we presented to you and the methods were initially developed in big companies, indeed. But nowadays, we're on our side working on getting into, well, SMEs or SMEs, small and medium companies in France. we have some pretty good feedbacks when we started to work with companies of an average size, something like 100, 150 people. So it works pretty well as well, and we are deploying it in a lighter way, trying to train the people in the company and let them deploy it on their own. We started to work with startups as well, and we just started to work with quite much smaller companies, like 5, 6, 10 people.
Nice.
But from the theoretical point of view, it works. We managed to help them really understand to what extent they are fixed in one vision of what their product or what their service can be. We managed to help them to better understand what could be the mutation tomorrow, what are the main skills, main competencies to develop in the company, what exactly to adapt the organization, or rely on partnerships around them to develop these new potential innovations. But at that time, there is two things that we need to address to be able to really work with very small companies. One is the funding of our support, because when we're working with startups, one hard thing is cash outcome. And the second thing is find a way to help them with the very little resources they have to reinvent their business and reinvent their core capabilities, skills, etc., while they have very, very little resources.
Yeah. Guys. Hello, guys. Diogo here, Focado partner. Thanks again for the presentations. I'm one of the ones that started studying CK theory in France and bring it to Brazil. And in Caos Focado, we use a lot of the base of the CK theory to guide our design thinking. And KCP method, it's one of the bases of our approach. So I think it's important this meeting that we are doing to share more about CK theory and KCP, because I think that there is a very good root on theory that sometimes in design, when I heard about design here in Brazil, I think it's missing. It's missing this root, this very strong root to think about design. So that's why I'm so glad to have this meeting and glad to have your presentation. Thank you so much. I have one question that I would like you guys to develop more. I don't know if it will be Benjamin or Fred. You feel free to answer. And my question is about what the relationship with the identity of objects and how we understand the identity of objects, and how CK theory helps us to understand, or KCP help us to reinvent or resignificate objects and products or organizations, and how they explain, how they help us to crazy concepts, and because I think that when we work with a lot of innovation methods, we try to innovate, but it's difficult to resignificate in real things, and how CK and KCP help us to create crazy concepts and to go in a different ways to create real innovation. That's my question.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yep. Okay, perfect. Okay, actually, today what we talk about, and that was the kind of things that I almost introduced earlier, is actually a kind of metaphor that we use. We say that we're doing genetics of things. What we say is actually that CK theory permits to first sequence the DNA of an object, meaning that we are able to find out all the attributes that are inside an object. Attributes that could be attributes are actually the genes of the object, and that could be actually expressed or unexpressed, meaning that you can see them or not. For example, a business model or some logistics parts or inherited things that are today is not shown anymore, standards and so on. So that's the first thing that we can do with CK. So sequence the DNA of the object. And the other thing that we can do is actually by managing good explorations of new pieces of knowledge, new genes actually, you can actually force the designer to integrate to the DNA new genes and to show all the potential mutation on the DNA. And that's what is new actually with CK theory, is that you can actually show today what can be all the mutations possible on one object. That's for us what is pretty new, and we'll develop this notion of genetics of things in the coming months and days, and we'll actually be able to talk more about this, and we are developing a methods oriented around this new techniques, which is genetics of things.
Okay, let me see if I understand. What you are saying is that we understand the essence of an object, and we model it. We understand each attribute, and with this understanding each attribute, I can change 1, 2, or 3, or 4 attributes to find mutations, and with these mutations I can exchange all the meaning of my first object that I was trying to model. So without this modeling approach or understand the DNA of things, it's difficult to really recreate things, to recreate the identity of the object. What I'm saying, to boost creativity, to boost innovation, I have to understand really the essence of things and model it before changing it.
Yes, almost, or at least what we say is that what we bring with genetic of things and CK theory is a kind of systematic approach that doesn't say that without it you cannot do anything. You can find pretty great mutations, you can have many creativity methods that will help you to find new things, but what we say is that with the systematic modeling brought with CK theory and genetic of things, you are able to map all the ideas that you had, identify some places where you didn't have any, and show them, and decide to go into these spaces, this kind of empty creativity spaces, and force the mutations in here, and force the group of designers, engineers, marketers, or whatever, to explore these empty areas, like exploring a map, and having, instead of having just the part of the map that you already know, revealing all the rest, and becoming conscious that there are some unexplored parts. Just to give you a short example of this, if you start to work on a chair, following the idea of genetic of things, you will have to define the chair. Its DNA will be that it has 4 legs on the ground. It's made either out of wood or metal. It can be foldable or not, and etc. etc. This is for the technical part. But if you're forced to use the model of identity of object, you will remind that you need as well to question the business model, where it's built, how it's sold, to what kind of customer, the value. What makes value in a chair for a customer? It might be design, might be comfort, might be things like this. And mapping all these attributes force you to think of renewing each of them. What if we changed the value of a chair? What if we explored a chair that is neither foldable nor unfoldable? What if we forced the chair not to use neither wood nor metal? What if we forced the chair not to be used by someone who sits around the table, etc., etc., etc.? You can imagine many mutations and do it pretty systematically, and getting something that's a kind of not exhaustive, because no design method will allow exhaustivity, but allowing you to have a kind of as exhaustive as possible mapping of the unknown.
Okay, I have a question as well. What I think is extremely interesting about the CK theory when I first read it, it was beside this analogy that you guys make with biology, with the genetical approach, you guys talk about the knowledge development. So I know some theories about design where the author focuses most on the material culture and not necessarily in the knowledge development. And one question that I have, I'm from the design field, so we discuss this a lot. So what is exactly design for you guys? How would you differ it from engineering and other fields that are creative as well? And why is only design that is related to innovation?
Okay, so when we talk about design, we actually talk about the process of creating something which can be either new or not. We don't actually talk only about the design of design which is related to object art or something. Design can be, for example, designing an aircraft. So when we talk about this, we actually include in this every activity coming from the reasoning process and coming out with a new, ending with something new. That can be a service, an object, an organization, or a law, or anything. So actually, designers, industrial designers today are in more relation to innovation, to the kind of creativity process. But for us, it's just a kind of era in which 10 or 20 years ago, it was some kind of quality processes that put engineers in a kind of small innovation. But when you go back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, you had also engineers doing some kind of new thing, innovation, creation, creative process. So I don't think that we could say that creative process or innovation only rely on the designers that you talked about. So I don't know if I answered the question, but
maybe I can just add well, on our side, when we talk about designing an object, people taking part in the design process might come from various background and various trainings, etc. So basically, what we sometimes say, that's not exactly true, but that's can be useful to explain some differences of approaches, is that depending on the background that the person doing the design process, depending on the background of the person, this person will be using different knowledge, and this knowledge will have an impact on the kind of thing that he will be able to create or generate. And if we take engineers in an innovation process, people from marketing or designers, we can quickly, even though it's a bit rough and not exactly true, we can quickly see that basically engineers will be more technically oriented, that marketers will be more market value on the market for existing customer segments, etc., and that the designer will be more looking at the relationship between the object or the service and the person, and will be more focused on feelings, sensations, the way it's interacting, etc. And they will all create knowledge on different fields. Engineers will be more technical, marketer will be more market-oriented, and designer will be more people-oriented, if I can say so. Adding to this the different background of the people, we can quickly see using C-K that putting them all together brings even more value than keeping them separate and having separate kind of design processes. So just my few cents.
Okay, I think this is a very interesting perception, and we are coming to an end. So to finish it, we have two questions that our viewers sent to us. The first one, I think it's easier to answer. The first one would be asking about metrics. To which kind of metrics would prove that the design process is going well? Like number of ideas, number of hours. Which kind of metrics do you use at the KCP methodology?
Okay. Well, just coming back a few seconds on design process. Remember that what we told at the beginning, we talk about innovative design process. So basically, we have two kinds of design processes. One which is rule-based design, the one used in any company trying to develop a product in a current market with well-known technologies, like quite converging process. And the other one being innovative design, the one we discussed tonight. So regarding the metrics for innovative design, what we use is a bit different from what people generally use in rule-based design. And we used to say that we use VOR as an acronym for evaluating value. VVOR meaning value, variety, originality, and robustness. And we don't value one ID, we value the overall reasoning of design through these four aspects. So value means did we, through the design process, renew our understanding of what the value could be? The value of the object, the value of the service, of the product, etc. Variety means do we have a set of ideas that are quite different one from each other, getting into all the different aspects of the identity of objects, some challenging the business model, some challenging the value, some challenging the customer technologies, or the specification, the functional specifications, etc. Originality means at each level of the tree, at each level of the disruption that we created, did we have something that's going pretty pretty far, and do we have something that's pretty close as well? Both are necessary and both are complementary in the design process. Neither one nor the other is the excellent, perfect solution. And the last one is robustness, and it's more related to knowledge. Does the knowledge that we use through the design process, does the knowledge that we use, is it robust? Can we really rely on it? Or is it something that we just heard like this once? To what extent can we rely on the knowledge that we use through the design process to ensure that all the things that we imagined can make sense? Okay, so basically keep in mind variety, value, originality, and robustness to evaluate the whole design reasoning. That's our basic metrics.
Okay, very interesting. And now I have another doubt. It's regarding to the presentation, and they want to know what is the main difference between the two tools. I believe they are talking about the KCP, maybe. I didn't get it as well.
What's the difference between what? Sorry.
Between the two tools. You can see the questions on the panel on your left. You have a Q&A, so you can keep it up.
All right.
Well, what I understand, I think they're having some difficulty to separate what is CK theory and what is KCP method. They are a little confused about what they use from one in what I use the other, and I think you guys can explain more better than me.
Okay. Okay, let me try to answer this. Actually, CK theory is theory, so we can use it only to modelize the process, the reasoning process. Okay, so this is the first thing that we show you is we can use it to show all the attributes used in any proposition to answer a first brief, which could be, for example, a rubberless tire. So CK theory is only used for this modeling. Okay, KCP is the method that we actually use with participants inside the company. So in this method, KCP, we use CK theory to modelize everything that is proposed, but to make it real, we have to do several seminars, sessions with participants, which is a more linear process, which is KCP actually. So KCP is actually the things that we implement inside the company.
I have one more question from the audience here, and it's more about applications. In fact, he was asking about if you guys have any social or in a development way when I'm working with communities, poor communities, for developing in this kind of social way of thinking. And a question that it's good to answer is in each application, in small companies or startups, or in a social application, do you guys see any difference in application of KCP or CK theory in each of one of these environments?
Right. Well, I shall try to answer. Basically, okay, CK theory is a pure theory of design reasoning. So from the theoretical point of view, there is no difference in a design reasoning when you create a car, an helicopter, a law, a way to feed your children in the morning, or a new dress for your sister. So from the theoretical point of view, it's exactly the same, and it's going to be the same to study design reasoning in a company or in a more social approach or social project association or whatever. From a much more concrete, practical, pragmatic point of view, I cannot give any example on our side. Both Fran and I were in which we really worked on a social business or a social approach. One of the closest example that we have is working for a kind of non-profit association in France, where the guys are developing new approaches of giving money on the day-to-day basis to support social causes, and we worked with them to help them reinvent giving so that anybody on any occasion of their daily life can do what they called embedded generosity, being able to give things to others at any time of the day in any conditions, being something much more diffuse than giving something big once in a year. So we worked with them on a project for reinventing generosity and giving, and we used the same mechanism and managed to go almost as far as we would have done in a campaign. And that's one of the examples that we have. So basically, I would say that there should be not much of a difference.
Okay, we have another question. It's more regarding your references. They want to know if you have any recommendation of papers and books, any kind of reading about the CK theory.
Okay.
I actually wrote a book last year, which is an introduction to innovative design, available on Amazon. I don't know if it's available in Brazil, but here in France it is. So I just added the link to you guys. Diogo, maybe you can see the link. I don't know how we can add it to the questions. So you can find it on internet. So the title of the book is Introduction to Innovative Design. And if you write this plus my name, you should find it on internet, I think.
I know also that you guys have some Ashwell's papers. Does he has anything as well that you guys would recommend?
So the first thing that you could do is to watch the videos of Ashwell on internet. He has many videos on internet, on YouTube and video and on Vimeo and so on. So that's the first thing that you could do. And so if you just Google it on internet, and the I think that we could give you some the best articles of Ashwell on CK theory. Maybe we could I don't know how we could do this, but maybe we could send it to you guys, and you could send it to the guests of this talk at the end.
So what we can actually do, we can put the links to those readings at the event page on the Google Plus and on Facebook event. So okay. we can organize all those readings. And we've reached 7 p.m. here, and you guys are in France, it's really late. So
it's midnight.
So thank you so much for making this call with us, even that it's so late for you in France. And I will ask Diogo, who invited you guys to make this call, to do some last words to finish it.
Guys, and thank you very much. I think, as I said after your talk, it's a pleasure to have you guys talking about one thing that I strongly believe, and I strongly believe that it's the root of innovation. It's one of the things that made the start of Caos Focado here in Brazil, and to spread this word and to reach more people. And I'm glad and thank you very much to accept my invite and to accept being too late for you and stay here with us. We have a very good audience until now, and this video will stay on our YouTube page, and we will spread more this talk, and I think we have very good impact here to talk about innovation and design in a new way of thinking. Because in Brazil we had a little mindset that I'd like to change in design and innovation, and you guys bring more light to the discussion. Thank you very much, and I give you the last words to finish our talk. Thank you.
Okay, I believe the last word will be pretty clear for us. Thanks for inviting us. It was a pleasure. And of course, feel free to give us a call, an email for all of you and your guests, or whoever you want, just to discuss it, have some more details or whatever. We'll be happy to answer as much as we can. Anyway.
Well, I just had an idea. You guys send the link, right, to the book. What I can do is this. Here, for everybody that is interested, this here is the book they were talking about, the Introduction to Innovative Design.
I just posted it on your Facebook page.
Okay, so I just shared the screen, so
To be recorded.
yeah, okay, and that's it. So thank you guys, and have a great night, and thank everybody for listening to this conversation.
More